We thought it would be super interesting to not just dive into jobs, but to dive into industries, because if a girl or a boy, frankly, and half of our readers are boys, actually, I'm learning this. It's a super interesting insight that boys read
That's
this.
amazing. That's amazing. Talk about also killing the unconscious bias of who belongs, because you're exposing them to seeing females wearing a hard hat. Welcome to Hands On Heroes podcast. I'm Val Crafton, the voice of grit. I champion the people who power progress and prove that the future is built by those willing to get their hands dirty. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome to Hands On Heroes. I have a special guest today, Kate Glantz with Move Over Bob. So excited about this interview and the movement that she is driving. Kate, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited about this conversation. Let's kick off with a little introduction. Tell everybody, where was Kate before Move Over Bob? So tell us a little about you and take us back a little bit.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And so I'll start by saying something I'm very proud of now that I'm back in Arizona, and that is that I'm a Phoenix native. There's not too many of those around these parts.
There's not.
And
we are quite the melting pot here.
And so for 20 years, I was always kind of the new person in a different place. And now that I'm back, my actual favorite question to ask people is, where did you go to high school? So I feel like I finally have that cultural capital being back in Phoenix. But this is Nugget. She's going to go play now. She is my little coworker. But I have had quite an adventurous last couple decades. Born and raised in Phoenix. I went to the Midwest, the University of Michigan for undergraduate, and then I went straight into the Peace Corps 6 weeks from graduating in Tanzania. And that was, honestly, I say, the foundation for every single thing that came after, professionally, personally, the experiences and sort of the resiliency and just what you're exposed to at such an early informative age. And in such a dramatically different context than one that I had ever been used to, that has made me, I'm certain, a better entrepreneur, a better person, a better friend, and just more empathetic in general as we tackle some really massive challenges now in our industry and construction. But after Peace Corps, I went on to work in the federal government for many years. I was overseas in different African countries, as well as in Washington, D.C. After a while, I realized I am not a bureaucrat. I am a voraciously curious and stubborn entrepreneur. So I ended up leaving the government. I started a startup and ran that for a few years. As most startups do, it failed, couldn't make money, but it sort of showed me the possibility of leveraging digital tools, my own ingenuity, and really sort of what happens when you break all of the rules with a good heart. After the federal government, I had a really exciting opportunity to start my own venture. I ran it for several years. I learned so much, ran out of money and couldn't make more. And that's what happens with most startups that are slightly ahead of their time. So I was fortunate. It was the right time, the right place. And I ended up joining Lyft a few years before they IPO'd to lead marketing. So that was really exciting to have a lot of resources, focus on storytelling, and kind of just make a lot of magic. And after that, went on to a few other roles, most notably for myself. I was an executive at a film studio in Los Angeles, and I got to sort of use the movie magic to do impact and philanthropy work. And then, as happens often in media and entertainment, we all got laid off one day. And so that was really the moment when I had to reflect on, what am I building? What am I doing with my life? I took a sabbatical, found myself in trade school, became a rough carpenter. Although you do not want me unsupervised on a job site, I can frame a house. Roof trusses were my specialty. And from there, I Move Over Bob was essentially not born, but I joined this nascent movement, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So let's move into that now. So you talked about transitioning into the Move Over Bob, but it didn't start with you. Let's talk about where it started. Where did Move Over Bob start?
I am one half of Move Over Bob, and my co-founder and partner, Angie Cacase, was a or is a lifelong tradeswoman. She started, as most teen girls are encouraged to do, in cosmetology and did really well in that trade, ended up buying a home, started renovating said home, quickly realized she had picked the wrong trade. She was always meant to be a carpenter, went to trade school herself, and the lore goes that in her initial class in carpentry, she was half the class were girls, were women. And so that was kind of a hadn't it was unprecedented even for the instructor. So she jokingly said, "Move over, Bob." And she, it's the people always ask who's Bob. And, Bob is everyone, Bob is every man, but really the true inspiration is Bob Vila. But followed by Bob the Builder, of course. And so as she's a millennial mom, so Bob the Builder played a formative role in her children's early years. But yeah, so she had been running a full-time construction business for many years. I had been working in all these other industries around media, entertainment, tech. And then we were introduced through a mutual acquaintance. And from there, we sort of just really hit it off and realized that we had such a similar mission and soul, despite being more different than any two people you could ever imagine. But that together we were so much greater than the sum of our parts. And we both dove in and really took this from a side project where she was really passionately interviewing women and doing long form interviews into the media company that we're building today. And we're both full time. We have been for over a year. And it's the best, honestly, it's the best relationship I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh my goodness. That's such a great story. And wow, what an adventure you've been on. I want to just kind of touch on that a little bit because we see you a lot. You're out there, your face, you're forward, your partner within this founding Move Over Bob. She's not a camera person, but she is very much doing things behind the scenes. And so just because you don't see her doesn't mean that she's not out there doing her part. She's a huge contribution and partnership to this. And Kate is a little more comfortable with being on the camera, especially with your background and so forth. So that makes sense. That makes sense. Thanks so much for taking us through that journey. Now let's talk a little bit about how Move Over Bob has evolved over, tell us, has it been a year since you've been solidified officially?
Yeah, Angie and I really joined forces last August, and we decided, she had spent a few years telling these incredible stories of much older tradeswomen, which is such a reflection of the industry. It's an older industry. They're still, in all of her years of engaging in this topic, and in all of my years and in sort of other industries, no one had kind of broached construction and trades through the lens of media, entertainment, and lifestyle in any way that moved any needles for young people, and specifically not young girls. And so we knew, we were in the weeds of the stats around our construction craft workforce retiring in droves over the next 5 years. I'm pretty tuned in to all of the infrastructure and development happening in Arizona, and yet we don't have people to do these jobs. And if you're not talking to half the talent pool, what are you actually doing? And it's, and so we were just initially up against all the same struggles everyone else has. Sure, there's good intentions everywhere, but we're not getting through. And so I will be really transparent. A magazine, which is our kind of biggest product in the market now, was not like 1 through 20 of our first list of ways we were going to get in front of girls. Of course, we use social media and digital platforms every day. So obviously we were thinking, how do we bring the magic of construction to girls virtually? And, just every which way we diced it, girls are not looking for this information online. And so we're a scrappy startup. We were not resourced to create high quality digital content and not only create it, but actually get an audience for it, distribute it. And so it was already a non-starter, but we were like, we got to get more creative. And so a magazine was a really interesting revelation, and maybe it's a revolution, because it's almost like a Trojan horse, because the place where it's needed most is schools, because teachers and guidance counselors don't have the language, the empathy, the experience, or the time or the materials to properly convey these opportunities, especially not to girls. And so it was risky. And I was like, the whole business model, this entire operation hinges on schools saying we can distribute this magazine in their classrooms and in their libraries and career centers. And I honestly didn't know what they would say. I was ready to like kind of prove everything out and go to battle with whatever legal contracts saying we were going to be, have integrity, which of course we would. But I was like, I'll sign anything. This is like for the girls. Nope. They were like, can you give us more? We have not we are in every major school district in the whole state. We are in over 400 middle schools and high schools and a number of nonprofits. We're in jails, prisons, all over, honestly. And that has not ever once been an issue. And I'm so pleased that educators and really everyone sort of who is a gatekeeper of sorts to this next generation understands that some innovation is essential in getting these messages across and have just been such a great partner in getting these magazines out. And so, yeah, that's we're pretty much all in on this quarterly teen magazine. Very much harkens back to the 17s and the teen magazines of when I was growing up as a millennial, before influencers, before social media. These were girls you would look at every month in this tactile, physical thing. You would even have like perfume samples sometimes and like rub them on your neck as like a seventh grader. And these were the cool girls that like showed me who I could be in a couple years and gave me all of this like fodder to think about and relate to my own life. And looking back, it was super duper toxic. Like these were terrible messages. Wildly effective. And, I was 12 and I was like, if only I lose 7 pounds, Billy will like me, like just gross stuff. But there is something undeniable about print, about bright colors, about fun messaging, about girls just who look like you, but like a little bit more in the world. And we've really decided to kind of reappropriate the power of print and teenage kind of materials for a generation that needs new role models that really are tied to independence, power, financial security, purpose, all of these really positive things, but also fun and fashion and like cool things and selfies and, all the fashion, really all of it too. We can be all of these things at once, actually.
I love this so much. And so I want to just touch on what you were saying with the magazines. Mm-hmm. Same. I mean, I'm a Gen X, but the same thing. We had the teen magazines, 17 magazines. And I was sitting here trying to think, what do I remember most about those magazines? I remember being, encouraged to sign up for pageants. And nothing wrong with pageants. If you're a pageant girl, that's awesome. I mean, I know a few pageant girls who have come out of the pageants and they're super smart and they're doing great things. Recently read one that's in nuclear. That's incredible. But the other thing was like the makeup, how to get a boy to like you, or am I compatible zodiac, for relationships. And we're really talking about and speaking to them about, here's what you've got to wear to look pretty, or here's the body type you have to be accepted. And those were the kind of messages that were coming out of this. It was not talking about independence. Mm-hmm. It was not talking about how can I have a career that makes a lot of money. We'll call it what it is because it is a male-dominated industry. A lot of people will call it the male paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. How can I make just as much money as a man? Well, that means you have to go get what we would call a man's job. But that's the wrong message. Why are we calling it even that? It's anybody's job, right? And so what you're creating is a magazine that shows girls that you can make good money. You can be independent. And oh, by the way, sure, have a relationship, but be with that in that relationship because you want to be, not because you have to be in a codependent way to have the lifestyle you want. So I love this. And not only that, but bringing awareness to all the opportunities. We weren't talking about, when we think about the STEM inside of schools, and I'm going into schools at the elementary level. I know I'm planting those seeds for you, Kate. So when they see your magazine, they're like, yes, look how cool that girl is. And we'll just grow from there. But when we're going in there, we're planting the seeds and we're saying, look how badass these women are, right? Welding, being carpenters, it's absolutely empowering and incredible. I couldn't have, set this up even more perfect. You and I were recently at the AIDC Summit here in Phoenix, and I had the opportunity to interview someone, and you'll all see this, but I asked her. She's going to school for construction management, and that's great. The college is one way, and then there's the trades. That's a whole nother way. So either someone pays you to learn or you pay someone else to learn. There's two paths. But interesting thing that she said to me was that's what she was doing now. And I said, what were you dreaming about being when you grew up? Before her dad had taken her aside and introduced her to the world that he was in. Talk about a move over Bob. Sometimes your allies is your father, right? Which that's fantastic. And so sometimes, that ally is your father. And I loved it so much because what she said she was dreaming about was the only thing she had ever been exposed to. The two things she said, she goes, I was either going to be a teacher, nothing wrong with being a teacher, but a teacher or a hairdresser. Those were the two things that she was dreaming about when she grew up. But after she was exposed, it turned on a dime. And look at her. She is going to college, construction management, focused on the future of mission critical. And I was just like, we can't make this up. That wasn't a real situation that happened 2 days ago, Kate. That was a conversation from 2 days ago with our Gen Z. And so I think it's incredible. I love this concept of making it cool, getting the awareness out there. This episode is powered by Mod 42, the modular data center company redefining speed to market. From design to delivery, Mod 42 brings precision manufacturing, quality assurance, and trusted execution to every build. When reliability can't wait, Mod 42 delivers. Learn more at mod42.com. I want to kind of move into something special you're doing, though. You're not just talking about the trades. You're actually hitting on something much bigger even, and you have a special spread coming out. This spread is going to be focused on data center and semiconductor. Tell us about this and why is it so important and why are you doing it?
Because we're in so many schools, I think there is a responsibility not only to showcase a path that's in trades and not necessarily college bound, although trades are still higher education, but to show all of the girls who have a different frame of reference for what they want to be and what interests them, who do want to go to a 4-year degree or at least 2-year degree program. And so it's so important that we show them that construction is not just swinging a hammer. There are engineers and architects and facilities managers and a whole range of roles that require more specialized education that we don't want you to find it after you already have a degree in something and you're miserable at 27 and now you're like, what do I do? We want you to start kind of getting like geeked on this stuff when you're 12, when you're 14, when you're 17, so that you actually can be looking at future options or even CTE and STEM programs where you're at right now today, over the summer, next semester. Because data centers and semiconductor chip manufacturing and a few other industries are so top of mind in Arizona and nationally and globally, honestly, we thought it would be super interesting to not just dive into jobs, but to dive into industries. Because if a girl or boy, frankly, and half of our readers are boys, actually, I'm learning this. It's a super interesting insight that boys read.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Talk about also killing the unconscious bias of who belongs, because you're exposing them to seeing females wearing a hard hat. I 100% believe that and do the same thing at the elementary level. Love that so much. I truly believe that there's something to, if you don't see it, you can't imagine it. And then when you get surprised by it when doing the job. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's exactly that. You know, it's hard to be what you can't see. And it's also important for boys to see it. And there was this really great insight or testimonial from one of our educators that filled out our feedback survey. And she said that boys are seeing girls can be in construction. Girls are seeing girls can be in construction, and everyone is learning that construction can be a lucrative pathway. And so that, to me, I was like, I couldn't have paid anyone to say that better. But the industry piece is, you know, we're in these conferences, we're constantly hearing in the professional ecosystem and echo chamber, we need talent, we need people. Okay, well, what happens when kids don't know what data centers are or semiconductors are or chips are? Like it's not to say they're not interested. They don't even know this is an industry. They don't even know. And so
we've kept it pretty secret.
Yeah. And I can promise you there is no IP being spilled in the pages of our magazine. Like our homework is to make something as difficult, complicated, advanced, kind of cerebral as these industries, and just make it something that a kid will go, oh, that's kind of interesting. What's this? And so we're really not giving graduate level seminars in a teen magazine on these industries. But my hope is that we're presenting them in a way that's just like kind of cool, kind of top level. Remember a soundbite. And then you'll have other reinforcement in class from industry. I mean, everyone needs to do their part here, but we want to help kind of bridge the gap between like the 0 to 1 of like, I didn't even know this thing existed to like, oh, I've heard of that. I still don't know what it is, but at least it's in my consciousness now in some small way.
100%. It's hard to dream about something you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And as much as we need the trades to build these mission critical facilities, data centers, semiconductors, we need someone to operate them and flip the switch as well once we get them built. And so that is a huge thing. And I love that you're dedicating an entire spread to it. That's very exciting. I know you did some photo shoots recently. I can't wait to get a copy of this spread. If somebody wanted to get involved from the mission critical world, how do they get involved and be a part of the contribution?
So there's so many ways. I mean, the thing I'm most proud of is that our magazine is a completely free resource to schools and nonprofits. So on our website, you can go and find sort of the button to request free magazines for your school or nonprofit in Arizona. We also sell them wholesale and retail. We have subscribers all over the country. Associations and companies have been great to basically scoop up some copies and bring them to their own recruiting events, which it only helps in their mission. And we also partner with, oh my goodness, so many companies to feature their women. Like that's the best part of everything, is that we're not just sort of pulling stock footage here and defining things. Like we're on job sites dodging bulldozers, and so we absolutely love working with pretty much everyone from GCs to client side to subs to bring these stories to life, to unions, to trade schools, to high schools. I mean, I haven't met a woman yet that I'm not excited to tell her story. And so if companies want to get involved, it takes a village, especially to print a magazine. So advertising always helps us a lot, and any type of kind of editorial partnerships. But we're very creative, and our number one customer is a teenage girl. And so we'll never, while we're not selling to her, we will never do anything that does not put her needs and best interest first. So we're really focused on sort of mission aligned, values aligned partners to build with.
But you can't do this for free. Like just hand these all out for free. You can't just do that. So the way you can help fund some of this is really getting your brand and advertising inside that magazine as well, right? Or maybe you're even buying those magazines and saying, hey, I would be willing to buy a magazine that will get out to these schools and to these counselors and pay for those, because as much as we want to give them for free, because that's really the mission at the end of the day, you still have to have the money to actually produce them, create them, and put them into place, not on top of all of that. So I love that there's two ways you can get involved. You can either buy some magazines to take them into your own community. You can actually buy the magazines and let Kate take them in for the community for you. You can advertise so that she can have the money to continue to do these episodes. But simultaneously, if you know a counselor or a school, she's happy to ship them a free magazine, because at the end of the day, this is the mission. We want to spread the word. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
I want to talk about how this is not only just changing how we view the future, right? And getting the future generation and really planting that seed with that Gen Z, saying, hey, this is a path for you. Mm-hmm. But we really need to, and this is something I've observed recently, not recently, but pretty much my whole career being in construction, is we haven't moved the needle within the cultures that these women actually arrive into fast enough. And it's really sad to me when I hear a story like Amber Check, who was a welder on the site, and talk about killing the unconscious bias. You know, we're told to lean in. We're told to not be sensitive, not to be too difficult. And we're told to, you know, have thick skin and, you know, build that grit and just ignore things. But we need to have a safe space for these women, so that if we do have folks who seem to have a bias still at this old school mindset, we're not going to be able to recruit people into this space, especially Gen Z. Gen Z won't put up with it if we can't create that safe space where we take them seriously if they're being harassed on the job site, because you still are going to have some of those old minds in there. Talk to me a little bit about that. I know you all made a post in support of that, and Angie actually even did a beautiful video around it, because she too is a welder herself, right? Yeah, a carpenter. Okay. So tell me a little bit about, you know, how you see things evolving, and what are some of the maybe stories that you've heard that you think, hey, this is the story I'm trying to change.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tragedy that
It is.
you know, this young woman, she was 20 years old, a promising welder, and she was killed at her job site by a coworker who didn't like her. And there are no words, like how it was really, it gave us a lot of pause, right? Because, you know, we're building this movement to show young women, hey, like the water's great over here, make money, do what you love. And if you can't even go to work and do your job without being harassed, or in this case, killed, like how can we rationally encourage young women without facing this culture problem head on? And I think that it's not just construction where women are not safe and don't feel safe, or harassed, or told to like suck it up, and, you know, don't rat someone out, or don't be a baby. And obviously construction is a culture where you do have to have thick skin, and we're not saying to change that. But I do think this is a moment where men have to step up, and they need to say things that women don't feel safe or comfortable saying, or maybe they're not even seeing or exposed to. They need to be better allies and not stand for BS. No harassment, no bullying. Teasing's fine. Like, we like teasing, it actually is almost like endearing in construction.
Yes.
It's a good sign if you're being teased. But if there is anything that feels off, you got to report it. You got to stand up. You got to put an end to it so fast, because all women want to do is just go to work, make money, and come home and take care of themselves and their families. It is no different than anyone else. And not one part of us is asking in our movement, in our mission, in our language, for special privileges, for, you know, special access, for different anything. Just like move over, you know. And I think this is like a good moment to say, like, we love Bob's who taught me how to weld, who taught me how to, you know, make a roof truss. Like, Angie's sponsors and role models and teachers are men, most of us, right? Because the industry is so predominantly male. And so this is not to say like we're coming after men's jobs or they're anything. Like, we just need you to like scoot over a little bit and let us contribute and let us go home safely and like, yes, be a good partner. That's it. And so I think it's always really heavy when a tragedy brings us around like the reality of our situation and a kind of a call to change. Like, why can't we just change and do better without having to have it be at the cost of someone's life? But if anything can come out of something so senseless and terrible, I hope it is more energy from men to stand up and more accountability on job sites, and just more emphasis on safety and workplace culture, not as a nice to have, but as like the foundation to any part of as important as a P&L, right?
Right. I mean, having worked in this industry so long, I've witnessed it firsthand. You know, if you go to HR, you immediately, and it's unfortunate that you know who's gone to HR. We shouldn't know that, but everyone knows. You're like, you get labeled. Mm-hmm. And so I think you made a really great point that And I 100% agree. This is a great opportunity for our allies, and our allies way outnumber the folks bullying us, but it only takes one. And, oh, he's just grumpy. Oh, that's just how he is. I'm quoting things that I've heard before just now. And so just look away, but we can't, I can't go and say anything to that person. It's going to be my male allies who are going to have to set him and put him into a good place, because maybe he's no longer a fit for the culture. I know we desperately need, seasoned, experienced people, but not at the cost of one bad apple ruining every apple and then causing an enormous amount of turnover, or worse, someone dies. That costs you way more than keeping an SME around who is creating such stress and destruction within an environment that we're all just humans at the end of the day. We all are just trying to, like you said, do that job, go home, to our families. It should never have come to this. I'm sure there's a whole story behind it, but I doubt he didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, you bug me. No, I think I read an article that they had proven that it was premeditated. It was a buildup.
Yeah.
And no doubt he would have said something to other men on the site. That would have been their opportunity to have maybe reported for her. Hey, this is making me really uncomfortable. I don't think she's going to say anything. And for her safety, I'm going to say something. And so I think that's what Move Over Bob is really saying, right? Like you said, we're not saying move over, Bob. We're saying make space for us, include us, take us under your wing, coach us, let us learn from you, stand up for us.
Yeah.
Especially this new generation who, we've got to do that. And we can't do it without the Bobs in our world, in our lives.
And guess 100%. What? You can't do it without us, because you want to talk to every boy out there. You're not going to have enough skilled talent to fill the demands of today, let alone in 5 years. And so it is imperative that women are brought into the skilled trades pipeline, not just because we're pretty good at a lot of these trades and roles, like excellent, actually. It's that there are not enough people. And so national security, national infrastructure, all economic, prosperity, all is contingent on having a skilled workforce able to work and show up. And we just don't have enough people. And so, yeah, I mean, it's again, nothing is about special privileges. And even though this is not just a girl power issue, right? And I think that I can see sometimes people write me off quickly, or write off this movement, not just ours, but all of the energy to get women into construction as a rah, you go girl. And it's yeah, no, that's definitely, that is where my heart is, but that is not the business case here.
Right.
The business case is we need people to work. And if, what I say to some people when I'm feeling a little sassy is I'm if I were doing this work for men, you would call me a recruiter. So it's different. We're building a workforce. It's just different language.
Right. It has nothing to do. I always think about it like sustainability as well. I think about sustainability and people want to immediately go, oh, tree huggers. And so here we want to talk about promoting more girls as basically planting those seeds and encourage them to consider these careers that are, predominantly for men. It's because they've only seen men do them because they are majority men. We've got to let them know that they are allowed to. And if we don't, then to your point, we won't have enough to fill all of the need. It has nothing to do with a crazy feminist movement. By no means. It's about the exposure. I've asked multiple times, every time I meet a woman in the industry, especially if she's, been in it for 20 plus years like myself, I always ask, how did you get into it? Because I'm always curious. And it's always one of two, and every once in a while there's this outlier. And I'll talk about the outlier. It was always one of two things. One, family background, their family, someone in their family, their father, family construction business, something like that. That's my story. Or two, they went into engineering because they thought they would go into engineering, decided they didn't like it, did a pivot while in college and pivoted to construction management and absolutely love it. Then there's the outlier. the outlier, someone took me under their wing. It was a Bob that moved over and said, I see potential in you. Have you ever considered? And took them under. And I rarely hear that, but when I do, it makes me so, so happy. I'm just like, I want to celebrate it and find their Bob and shout them from the rooftops, because I do think that the more we do that, and you're enabling that to happen by spreading the word, saying, hey, we need more Bobs to help bring in and move over and make space and say, hey, I see your potential. Let's go. Your magazine is Bob. You're saying, come on, ladies, we need you. There's space for you. Let's go. And we have a ton of allies who agree with us. So 100% love all that you're doing. I think your mission is very, very important. I'm so excited to watch it continue to grow and rise and become regionally and global and keep driving toward this thing that we desperately need. And that's more people in the workforce. And we need 50% of them or more to be women. So now that we're going to close up here, I'd love to just understand where you're going. What's next for Move Over Bob? What can we expect for the future?
Oh, my favorite topic. Dreaming big. And we have to, right? If we're going to make a difference, there is no single initiative that's going to close the labor gap, that's going to get girls to feel included in construction if we don't take this on through culture and entertainment. And so there are many steps, but I will give you my grand dream of when I know we have been successful is when you turn on TV or you go to the movies and the female lead of a rom-com or of a comedy is a plumber or an HVAC tech or a carpenter. And it's not a plot twist. And it's not about her paving the way. It's just her job. It's like one identifier. And that is where I want to get to the point where it's not any different than choosing to be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a crossing guard, whatever you want to be, that it just is an option. And it's going to take a lot of work in our mainstream media, in our advertising, in our marketing, in our entertainment, in our social and streaming platforms. And that is the world that we are really moving towards, because when you were 15, you were not thinking about how do I contribute to closing the skilled trades gap? Not your problem as a 15-year-old. It is basically a fantasy of best case scenarios. Where am I going to live? What are my clothes going to be when my mom can't tell me what I'm wearing? You know, like what's for dinner? Where am I going on vacation? What is my life like? And until we're actually providing real kind of like fantasy fodder of what that looks like as a welder or a crane operator or a carpenter or an engineer or an architect, then we're not going to be able to get girls really thinking about this outside of like a workforce context. And that is my biggest swing that we're taking and what I believe we can accomplish because women in construction are that cool. It's not the hardest job in the world to show off how amazing the women in this industry are. It's just changing very long-term generational attitudes and stigmas and narratives and again, making room for new ones.
I absolutely love all of that. I'm so excited about where you're going and how you're going to be changing the future and who ends up in these roles, right? I'm planting seeds, but you're watering them. And I'm so happy to be connected with you. And I will shout Move Over Bob from the rooftops. So thank you so much, Kate, for taking the time today to share your story, to share a little bit more about Move Over Bob and the mission and how folks will get involved. If you're listening in, please check out the show notes. We'll have the links to Kate's website and how you can get involved with Move Over Bob and how you can contact her directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode of Hands on Heroes. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click on the bell to get notified every Thursday that a new video has been posted. And while we're here, check out another episode. Also, if you're interested in joining the mission, either as a guest speaker or sponsor, visit handsonheroes.net for more information or reach out to us directly at info@handsonheroes.net.